there are people, some in my industry, many are just fans, that are gleeful, that is full of glee, at the thought that the Boston Celtics and their championship aspirations are no more, right? And some of this comes from the fact that the city of Boston, though the Bruins lost in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, because the Red Sox are defending World Series champions, because the Patriots are defending Super Bowl champions, because the Bruins are defending, do they call it Eastern Conference? What is I have no idea in hockey. I swear to God, is when I know the Conn Smythe Award. That's about, I know the Stanley Cup. I don't even know the breakdown of divisions anymore. But, I mean, like, look, Boston, professional sports-wise, has been killing it, right? So, I think some of it comes from an anti-Boston sentiment. Some of it comes from the fact that the Celtics are run by Danny Ainge, and when Danny Ainge was a player, he was pretty much the least likable dude of anybody who's a Celtic hater out there. He's like, well, he was that guy. I'm trying to think if there is that guy in the NBA now, right? Like if Grayson Allen, who was just traded from Utah to Memphis, if Grayson Allen had massive game, because Danny Ainge was a good player, then you would say, all right, that's Danny Ainge. I'm trying to figure out, there's the way you hate Draymond Green is the way people hated Danny Ainge. He's just one of those guys that would say whatever, do whatever. You're like, I hate that guy. But if you're a Celtic fan, you're like, dude, Danny Ainge is awesome. Yeah. So I think some of it comes from the fact it's Danny Ainge. Some of it comes from the fact that it's Boston. And I think some of it comes from the fact that they seemed so close and were able to remake themselves after winning a championship. And people have thought they've gotten a pass for flaws. Maybe there's this thought that they made Isaiah Thomas play when he's hurt, right? Like there's a lot of anti-Celtics sentiment out there. One of it is, well, they made Isaiah Thomas play when he was hurt. Like, okay, maybe that's what happened. Or maybe Isaiah Thomas was in a contract year, thought he had a chance to make $100 million in an upcoming offseason, was an MVP candidate within their system, and he wanted to get back out and play and prove to people that he was healthy enough to play so that it wouldn't hurt him when his contract came up, and he ultimately cost himself, I don't know, $100 million or so. So whatever it is, I do think that it's okay to point out that there's some anti-Celtics sentiment. But what I've heard over the last 24 to 48 hours is, well, the Celtics. I mean, what has Danny Ainge really done with that trade? What has he possibly done with that trade? And congrats on all the draft picks. You won the offseason. You won the draft. You didn't win any real games. And you're never going to get any free agents because nobody wants to go to Boston. Now, I'm young, but I wasn't born yesterday. And I seem to remember in 2016, Al Horford was available. He was a member of the Atlanta Hawks. He was an unrestricted free agent. And a lot of people thought he would go to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Why? Thunder were close. Thunder were coached by Billy Donovan. Right? The Thunder were trying to hold on to Kevin Durant. Remember that? They're trying to hold on to KD. At the time, the thought was, well, maybe you get Al Horford. Brings you more shooting at the center position, steadiness, professionalism. Oklahoma City didn't even get a meeting. They went out and traded for Victor Oladipo. That's what happened. And Al Horford signed with the Boston Celtics as a free agent. And people thought, you paid too much. Why? Because they're Boston, because Danny Ainge, because Brad Stevens is a college coach. I don't know. The very next year, the Boston Celtics, the same Celtics who, they don't get free agents. Do you guys remember who the prize was of the 2017 free agent class? Anyone? Anyone? Yeah, that was Gordon Hayward. They got him to go along with a wealth of draft picks, young players, talent. They were returning Isaiah Thomas from the year before, who was going to come off of a hip injury. That was before they traded for Kyrie Irving. And when they traded for Kyrie Irving, the logic behind the trade was he fits in with our timeline, with our plan, with the age of our players. Like, it was a great plan. Do you guys remember what happened? Yeah, Gordon Hayward broke his leg in half in the first 2 minutes of his game with the first game with the Celtics against the Cleveland Cavaliers on national TV. So, did the plan end up in a championship? No. Did the plan end up in an NBA Finals appearance? No. But even if you want to say that, look, when you traded for Kyrie Irving, you could have known something would go wrong with his knee. Okay. Like, I have never heard of a player in the NBA having metal that holds together their kneecap that had to be removed. That was initially what he had done. It was bothering him when he was playing. He had metal taken out because they was holding the screws kind of together as the kneecap, which had broken in pieces in game 1 of the NBA Finals back when he played with the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first NBA Finals. That was what he had taken out. And then when they did that, then he had an infection in one of the screws. So they'd take that out, clean that out. But even if you said, like, look, Kyrie, he had the toe in college. He had a litany of injuries when he was with the Cavs. You had to know that Kyrie Irving would break down. Okay, I'll go okay. But if any of you armchair quarterbacks, if any of you Twitter gangsters saw Gordon Hayward as possibly who had never had an injury, breaking his leg in half in the first 2 minutes of his first game at the Celtics, dude, you need to go to Vegas. Nostradamus has nothing on you. And you read now articles where they're like, well, the reason that Brad Stevens lost the team was he kept playing Gordon Hayward early in the year when he wasn't ready. Like, yeah, okay. Look, I understand the Gordon Hayward thing. One, Gordon Hayward is a former player for Brad Stevens at Butler. So even though he's not the son of the coach, there are going to be guys who are like, yo, they're boys from way back. There is the white guy element to it as well. That's the reality of not just Boston, the NBA, but anywhere in the NBA. Well, you know, he's a white guy in Boston. He's going to play. There's also the reality of how much money he makes and jealousy. And guys are like, look, I'm better than him. He's making a bunch of money. He's only making money. He's only playing because he's making a bunch of money, which is real. Even if you took the actual reality to how anybody who runs any NBA team was probably thinking, which is like, look, we know Gordon Hayward's not good now. We know that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum may be better than him now. But we've seen Gordon Hayward be an all-star before he got hurt. He was an all-star in the West before he got hurt. We saw that. Right? So we know what we think Jason Tatum can ultimately get to that, but we know what Gordon Hayward has been in the NBA. So if we bite the bullet now, maybe by the end of the year, he'll be back to the Gordon Hayward of old. And there were some signs, but it wasn't meant to be. Look, the truly what's happening with Al Horford in Boston is this. Danny Ainge is not an idiot. He has won seemingly every one of these trades. And he didn't go and get Anthony Davis. Yeah, because you know what he's not willing to do? He's not willing to do what the Lakers were willing to do, which is sell the farm for one player, because he's seen that not work in New York. He's seen it not work elsewhere in the NBA. He didn't have to do it in order to build the big three in Boston. He didn't have to do that. And so instead of selling the farm to get Anthony Davis, they're sitting there reasonably going, well, Al Horford is 33 years old. Why would we give him 4 years max money? One, he's probably not worth it. Two, that's the act of either desperation, which we're not, or aspiration to win a championship, and we're just not there. We lose Kyrie Irving, we're not a championship team. He's got great character. He's a very good player. He's solid. But you know what he's not worth? Just like Anthony Davis isn't worth trading off all of your primary assets for one guy when you have a good, strong, young nucleus that you can build around, Al Horford is not worth giving a max contract to because you're not one player away from winning a championship. You're just not. Tell me the trade that Danny Ainge has lost. How'd they get Jason Tatum? They had the number 1 overall pick. They traded back to the number 3 pick. The number 1 pick didn't play in the NBA last year. And maybe you could say, well, no one could have seen the Markelle Fultz thing coming. That's fair. But they seem to do pretty well with that one. They trade away nothing to get Isaiah Thomas and then trade away a broken down Isaiah Thomas to get Kyrie Irving. Go through it. He's been so good that no one wants to pick up the phone because you feel like, dude, whatever Danny Ainge does, he's going to try and win this trade, which he should do. Danny Ainge as a GM is Danny Ainge as a player. If he's your GM, you're like, you know what? He doesn't waste money on a team that's not going to win a championship. He pockets resources. He recruits good players. He's got a really good coach. He gets more out of his team than he could. Like, dude, they were good. Then they tanked. Then they got good again. What am I missing here? You don't like him because what? He boondoggled your team in a trade? And you can say to me, well, they haven't won a championship. And you're right. You're right. They haven't won an NBA championship since 2010. But they've been to the conference finals 3 other times. During the last 5 years, they've been to the playoffs all 5 years. And if you want to compare them to all the other franchises, the Bulls have been to the playoffs, what, once? The historically good franchises. The Lakers have gone through the 6 worst years as a franchise. The Knicks, do you want me to start? Any punchline, any joke can end up with the New York Knicks, and you're like, ha, 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 right? So, if he was your GM, you'd be like, all right, I'm in. Whatever he does, seems to have a plan. And when it doesn't go right, like Gordon Hayward breaking his leg, he seems to try and figure out the problem with a reasonable solution. So instead of wasting money on a player that's not going to get you closer to a championship, he's going to rethink things and let somebody else get a really good player. Be very careful of dancing on the grave of the Boston Celtics and Danny Ainge. It's been done before. People have thought they've gotten over on him before. Go through his trades. Tell me when he's lost. When you're consistently in the playoffs, when you manage your money well, when you have good young talent, even when the chemistry goes awry, you stop, you take a breath, you figure it out, and you don't have a Chris Paul contract or a Joe Johnson contract that you cannot trade, that you cannot move. And that's why they're swallowing hard and letting somebody else, like the Dallas Mavericks, overpay for Al Horford. Because either desperation or aspiration, and they are neither. Hi, I'm Doug Gottlieb from Fox Sports Radio, and you need to subscribe to the Fox Sports Radio YouTube channel where you can hear and see me. Why not? Plus, everybody else who's awesome here on Fox Sports Radio.